Hello, my sweet summer children. Today's long night juice is going to be analyzing why we can or can't trust the original outline of the plot that George R. Martin turned into his publishers in 1993. 3 years before Game of Thrones, the first book of this awesome series, was released, George R. Martin turned in a script or a outline of what his A Song of Ice and Fire series would be about. I did a video about A Song of Ice and Fire and all the influences George R. Martin had for inspiration, and I'll link that at the top so you can take this video and that video and kind of make your own decision. This outline has been out for a few years, but we are going to analyze the F out of it. I will put a link to the full outline in the article that covered the outline, the who's, the what's, the when's, the where's, the how the fuck it got released. I will be comparing books and show to this plot because I think the combination of both is very confirmatory that George R. Martin basically did stick to this original outline. A few things were definitely changed, but the overall seems to be going in the same direction, like in a crazy George R. Martin roundabout way. We know that the books are the source material for the show, and all these characters will end in the same way on the show as they do in the books. Okay. I think the original outline is more of what would be important to the story in the show. The original outline omits the same things that the show omits, which is a big clue in itself. If you read through the whole outline and you've read the books and watched the show, then you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. The original A Song of Ice and Fire was to be a trilogy, 3 books. The first book was to be Game of Thrones, the second book was to be Dance of Dragons, and the third book was to be Winds of Winter. There were to be 3 major conflicts: the Lannisters versus the Starks, Daenerys across the Narrow Sea, and the biggest threat of all, which is the White Walkers. So far, that part has stayed on track. We have seen all of those conflicts be at the forefront of the major plot. I'm not going to read the outline word for word. I'm just going to give you the juice. So the outline says that Ned and Catelyn are doomed, which happened. It said Sansa would choose Joffrey over her family, which happened. But it did say she would have a baby. So even though she didn't have a child with him, thank God, she basically did go down that same path. It said that Robb and Joffrey would meet in the battlefield and Robb would maim Joffrey. And it also said that Robb would later die on the battlefield. We didn't exactly get that. I would have loved to see Robb shit all over Joffrey on the battlefield. I think the Red Wedding representation of the Black Dinner added a lot to the story. The things that are not mentioned in this outline are Dorne, and also the Aegon Targaryen or Young Griff is not mentioned, which could be a big clue as to why Dorne was kind of butchered by HBO and why we have yet to see Aegon or Young Griff. Maybe they are not important to the overall story that is being told. With that being said, the Tyrells, the Tullys, and the Greyjoys aren't mentioned either. And I thought the show was going to skip over a lot of the Greyjoy threads, and so far we haven't seen Victarion, but they did circle back and do a lot of the Greyjoy stuff recently, which means the Greyjoys probably have a big part to play, Euron specifically. I truly believe that no Targaryen rule would ever be complete without a Blackfyre rebellion. Young Griff may not be important, or it must have been an afterthought, but I still stick to my decision that he could possibly surface in season 7. The way the trilogy looks to have been set up was the Game of Thrones was to be mainly focused on the Starks versus the Lannisters. Dance with Dragons was supposed to be set up as a Daenerys and Essos tales, and Winds of Winter was supposed to be about the White Walkers, with all 3 major plots converging and intertwining in all 3 books. So in both the books and the show, we don't know much about the White Walkers, but we know we will learn more about them in Winds, and we know why. Not because this outline that was done in 1993 says that we will, but George R. Martin said that we will, and he said that really recently that Winds of Winter would cover tons of White Walker stuff. So we shall see. One of the most interesting parts in this outline are that the 5 survivors are to be Tyrion, Jon, Arya, Bran, and Daenerys, and this whole story is kind of a generational tale about them, about how they change and how they change the world. So with that being said, that means Sansa, Jaime, and other characters we have grown to love or not love will not make it. There is also a love triangle between Jon, Arya, and Tyrion, which just seems crazy. I know Jon and Arya have a great relationship, and he's like her favorite person. He gave her needle. The relationship was a brother and sister relationship, and they are supposedly tormented by their feelings for each other. I don't really know what's going to happen there. Everyone is pro Daenerys being with Jon, and Jon and Daenerys being the Song of Ice and Fire. But it could make more sense that Arya was the ice and Jon was the fire, because Jon is a Targaryen, which means he is essentially fire. Or is he fire and ice? I don't know, child. That's for another day. It also states that Daenerys is the last of the Targaryen dragon lords, which basically puts all my thoughts of her being Ned and Ashar's baby to the scrap pile. I never thought that anyway, just based on her visions in the House of the Undying, but I did think it was plausible when I've heard others discuss it. The Dothraki invasion was to be central in Dance with Dragons, but it didn't work like that, so Winds is probably going to have a lot to do with Daenerys crossing the Narrow Sea with her Dothraki horde and White Walkers. Now, there has always been this thought that either the others bring the cold or they come when it's cold, and this outline kind of answers that question. The Neverborn and the inhumane others raise cold legions of undead and Neverborn prepare to ride down on the winds of winter to extinguish everything we would call life. Firstly, what the fuck is a Neverborn? Excuse my language, but maybe one of Craster's kids or something, or aborted babies? I have no idea, but apparently they are going to ride down on the winds of winter, so that means they don't bring the cold themselves. They come when it's cold. They ride on the winter winds. He goes on to say that characters and plot threads from the books will all draw together and resolve all in one huge climax. It talks about Jon's true parentage being revealed in Winds, which should happen in Winds of Winter, the books, and did happen in Season 6, Episode 10, titled Winds of Winter. Coincidence or nah? Another interesting thing in the plotline was that Viserys was a Targaryen pretender, and Daenerys kills Khal Drogo to avenge Viserys' death. It doesn't say Viserys was a Blackfire or Viserys was a fake Targaryen. It says Khal Drogo will finally grow annoyed and kill him out of hand, eliminating the Targaryen pretender. I don't know. I don't even have the energy to address that right now. Also, my favorite Kingslayer of them all was originally supposed to succeed Joffrey on the throne by simply killing those in front of him, which would have been Myrcella and Tommen, and blaming Tyrion. So what was basically written for Cersei was originally meant for Jaime, or is that a Littlefinger tale? I don't know. If it was Jaime, that would have been terrible because we would have missed out on all his awesome POVs. While Tyrion is in exile, he switches sides and makes common cause with the Starks to bring down Jaime. But in this case, it would be Cersei. There's also this part where it says that because the Night's Watch vows cause you to give up your family, Benjen and Jon kind of refuse to help Arya, Bran, and Catelyn, leads to some bitter estrangement between Bran and Jon. It also talks about Bran waking from a coma and magic and basically the dream he had before he woke from his coma. It also says that the Starks will survive from Bran's magic, Arya's needle, and the savagery of their direwolves. So I'm thinking that Ghost and Nymeria make it to the end. So for the most part, the main plots have hovered around this original outline with a few minor changes here and there, but the changes seem to be small. Now, I do not think this is anywhere near enough information to tell you how this wonderful series or books will ultimately end, basically because of how George R.R. Martin writes and who he is. And if that isn't enough, the second paragraph of this outline says, as you know, I don't like to outline my novels. I find that if I know exactly where a book is going, I lose all interest in writing it. I do, however, have some strong notions to the overall story I am telling. So do you guys think our survivors will be Daenerys, Tyrion, Arya, Bran, and Jon? In my opinion, this story has always been about House Stark, Lannister, and Targaryen and their survival. What do you guys think? Is there anything significant about this outline? How it compares to the show and the books? If you don't follow me on Twitter or Instagram, then you missed my upload schedule. I will be providing regular scheduled content on Wednesdays and Fridays. I am also planning on doing a second Sundays, which will be some kind of random video every second Sunday or every other Sunday. I will be providing you with a monthly bonus video and a monthly live stream Q&A. I haven't worked out all the configurations to that yet, but I did want to let you know that I have that in the process, and I basically don't know what the fuck I'm doing, but I got you. I'm going to run a poll at the top of this video. Just let me know what you're most excited for. Also, you can check me out on the Focalizer podcast. I'm doing a YouTube confidential that should be up by the time this video is up, or shortly after this video is up. So I will link that information in the description box for you. Okay, my sweet summer children, have a good day.